Hi friends, so in this video I am going to talk to you guys about my current favorite concealers for dry skin and aging skin. So these are the concealers that have worked best for my skin, have blended really nicely into my skin, have worn really well throughout the day, so I wanted to share those with you. Before we get into the video and I start demoing the products, I wanted to talk a little bit about my skin. So I am 38 years old. I have normal skin in the warmer months, but it tends to be dry in the winter months. So I find that I need a concealer that kind of works for all seasons for me. So those are concealers that are more for dry skin. I find that those products work best for me. I do have fine lines that are kind of starting to turn into wrinkles under my eyes here. So I do notice that there is some creasing with products, a lot with some products and some minimal creasing with others. It's rare that I have no creasing at all throughout the day. It just, product will kind of get into those fine lines and settle a little bit, but with a lot of products it's not really noticeable. So when I'm looking at a concealer, I'm looking for something that is moisturizing and hydrating and blends really nicely into my skin, something that lasts nicely throughout the day. It doesn't get patchy or it doesn't separate, and it just kind of stays on my face. And I'm also looking for something that won't settle too much into my fine lines. So when I'm thinking of a concealer, those are the concerns or the things that I wanted to make sure that it addresses. All of the concealers that I'm talking about in this video, I will link below, as well as the shades that I am using. So now that I rambled on for almost 2 minutes, let's get into the video. So the first concealer I'm going to talk about is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This had fantastic reviews online and I tried it out and I was quite impressed. This retails for $7.99 Canadian, and the shade I have is Fair Rose, and I'll put it down in the description box below. But I really like this concealer. On the website, on the e.l.f. website, it claims that this is a full coverage, crease proof hydrating concealer, and after trying it, I would not say that this is a full coverage concealer. I look at this more like a medium coverage concealer that's buildable. But for me, if I want a full coverage concealer, like I want that full coverage, I will use a full coverage concealer. I don't like layering and layering and layering and building up a concealer or a foundation. If I want a particular type of coverage, I will go for a particular type of foundation or concealer that gives me that specific coverage. So I wouldn't recommend building this one up because there is some creasing with this one. It's minimal, but there is some creasing. So I would say if you keep building it, you're just gonna make the creasing worse. When it comes to this one, I noticed that wearing it throughout the day, it wore really nicely. My under eyes felt hydrated throughout the entire day. Like I said, very, very minimal creasing. I did not set this one with powder, but I found that it didn't really need it. It lasted really well throughout the day, even without setting it with powder. And I found that even after like a workout or just being out and about all day, it was still under my eyes. It did not go patchy. It didn't oxidize. It just lasted really, really beautifully throughout the day. So before I apply this, I just wanted to show you the applicator. So it comes with a really large doe foot applicator, which feels lovely on the skin. It's so comfortable. It doesn't have any sharp edges. Really great. Now, the only thing is, for me, this is too much product. It does pick up a lot of product. So I like to take some of the excess off and just kind of use a little bit and then build it if I need some more. So I'm going to be light-handed and add a little bit on one side. And I'll just put that much. And there we go. The consistency is very gel-like. And for this one, I like to use a damp beauty blender to blend it in. So the consistency is, I think, more gel-like, and it blends really easily into the skin. And I just like how my skin feels once I've actually blended it in. Like, it feels moisturized and it feels hydrated. And I do like using this concealer on days where I'm not really into wearing like a foundation or a tinted moisturizer, I'll use this under my eyes, and I'll use it in other areas where I want a little bit of correction, and then I'll just put on some bronzer and some blush, and I'll call it a day. So I really like the formulation of this as an all over the face concealer. I think it blends really nicely, and it just works really, really nicely. I don't set this one with powder because I just like a more hydrating finish. There are some concealers that I'll set with powder, but for this one I won't set it with powder. I just like how it wears and how it stays on throughout the day. So this is what it looks like, and again, I didn't put too much on, and you can see like the brightness and the difference between the two eyes, and I just think it blends so nicely and just looks so natural, and just sits on my skin so lovely. The next concealer I wanted to talk about was the Kosas Revealer Super Creamy and Brightening Concealer. I tried this one on the back of my hand at Sephora, and I loved the consistency. It felt almost like an eye cream a little bit. It felt very creamy in texture, and it blended a bit like an eye cream. So I just really love that texture, and I thought it worked really well for my skin. When I looked on their website, they claimed that this is a medium coverage, super creamy concealer, eye cream and spot treatment all in one that reveal better skin over time and help brighten the skin. There's a few ingredients that they call out on the website. So the first two are caffeine and pink algae, which are supposed to brighten the skin. Then they had arnica and pro vitamin B5, which are supposed to soothe the skin. And then lastly, they had peptides and hyaluronic acid, which are supposed to plump the skin. So I have to say that I think the peptides in there are quite good, because I noticed that when I'm wearing this concealer throughout the day, my skin does retain that plumpness. I find that with some makeup, my skin tends to dry out throughout the day a little bit, but with this one, I found that there is that plumping effect, like as if you're wearing a moisturizer. And there was a bit of brightening that I noticed under my eyes, which I thought was really nice. Now, whether that is due to the ingredients or just the fact that the shade of the concealer that I got was really good, I'm not really sure when it comes to the brightening, but I did notice the brightening effect under my eyes and that it lasted throughout the day. So just wanted to mention that. This guy retails for 37 Canadian dollars, so it is on the pricier end, but I have to say with this one, a little goes a long way, so I didn't have to use too much, but I really just liked how plump my skin felt throughout the day and just how moisturized it felt throughout the day. For the Kosas concealer, I am using shade 1.5C, and this one comes in 28 different shades. So just to show you the applicator, so it comes with this small doe foot applicator. I really like the applicator. I love how flexible, like look at that. Look at the flexibility and how bendable this is. I find it really great to get into like small areas, so like around your nose, or if you really want to get into the corner of your eye. I like that it gives you a bit more precision, and the flexibility makes it lighter in the application. So you're not like putting all of it on. You can like be a little light-handed because it is so flexible. So now I'll take a little bit and just put it there and there. I find that for this one, the consistency is super creamy, like really, really, really creamy. It reminds me of like the NARS Creamy Concealer. I love the consistency. It just feels amazing. And for this concealer, I also like using a damp beauty blender to blend it in. I just find that I like the way it looks when I use a damp beauty blender. I just think it blends in really nicely. The blendability of this is incredible. It honestly just melts into my skin. It's like you're using a concealer and skincare at the same time. I love, love, love this concealer, especially like now that I'm getting older. I'm appreciating hydrating and creamy and more moisturizing products a lot more. So this one's definitely just a huge favorite of mine. So this is what it looks like blended in. It does give really nice brightness, and it just covers so nicely. So this one is buildable. I definitely think this one, yes, it's buildable, but again, like If I want a lot more coverage, I'll just go with a higher coverage product. I just like the way that looks. I feel like it gives you a more natural look while still giving you the appropriate coverage. But other than that, I absolutely love this concealer. Just how it sits on my skin and how my skin has such a healthy look to it. Love it. When wearing this concealer, I notice very, very, very minimal creasing. And the creasing that I would notice, I could just go under my eye with my finger, kind of pat it out, and it would just nicely blend back into my skin, and it would just look great for the remainder of the time that I was wearing it. And I would notice that creasing like hours after applying it. So the coverage stayed and lasted throughout the day. The brightness under my eyes lasted throughout the day. And I just like how blendable and easy it is to work with. Now, the one thing I would say when you wear this concealer, you have to give it time to like soak up into your skin. I found that with this one, I had to wait about 10 minutes. It's almost as if you're putting on skincare. Like that's how I looked at it, because I noticed when I would put it on and I would just go with like powders or continue with my makeup, it just didn't sit as nicely on my skin. So I kind of had to put it on, leave it alone, give it about 10 minutes, and then I could continue with my makeup. It's basically, like I said, it's like putting skincare on. Third concealer I wanted to talk about was the Revlon Color Stay Skin Awaken Caffeine and Vitamin C 24-hour 5-in-1 concealer. That is a long name. So this one had quite the claims on the website. So it claimed that it reduces puffiness and it reduces dark circles because of the caffeine. It brightens and it helps hydrate and refreshes and makes you look awake. And it's supposed to last 24 hours, which I don't really understand why anyone would wear their makeup for 24 hours. Like, it's not good for your skin. But anyway, this guy retails for 16 Canadian dollars. So out of all of the concealers that I've talked about in this video, this one was the least favorite, but it's still a favorite. So a few things. A lot of product comes out of this sponge tip applicator, and it can get really messy in the cap, first thing. Second of all, I would not use this as a full coverage or medium coverage concealer. I realized I had to use this light-handedly. So just used a little bit as a light coverage, light to medium coverage concealer on days where I just want a little bit of coverage. I want to feel a little bit pulled together, but I don't want, to look like I'm wearing a lot of makeup. So once I started using it light-handedly, I noticed that the creasing was less, and I noticed I had to set this one with a little bit of powder. So even if you have dry skin, I would recommend setting this one very lightly with powder because you will get the least amount of creasing. Now, what I was super impressed with, that even if I set it with a little bit of powder, it still left my skin feeling moisturized and hydrated even as the day progressed, and it just wore beautifully throughout the day, and it made my skin feel really good, and it gave me that awake look throughout the entire day. I did a workout in this, wearing this, and my skin still looked really good after it, and it still felt moisturized and hydrated. So I was super impressed with that, and this is why it was one of my favorites, because I could wear it as an everyday concealer and get what I need from a concealer, get that coverage, make my skin look pulled together, make me look awake, and it would still retain the moisture throughout the day in my skin, and it wouldn't make my skin look dry or patchy, and the coverage stayed there throughout the whole day. So the shade that I'm using in the Revlon concealer is 003, and I believe this one comes in 19 different shades. So the applicator, it comes with this sponge tip applicator, which I like. Again, very comfortable on the skin, feels very nice. I don't like using this to blend it out. I find that it's great to place product on my skin, but I do not like it to blend it out. I just don't think it works. So for this particular one, I like to use my fingers to blend it out, and then at the end I'll just go over that with a damp beauty blender. So I'll just take the concealer and put some here and then some there. And I'll just take my fingers and warm up the product and just work it into my skin. I found that for this one, I tried using a beauty blender at first, and then I just didn't think that it looked as good, and I didn't think it blended out as nicely. And then I tried my fingers, and I just loved how that looked. It just blended in so much better. So I think this one, I need to warm up the product with my finger when I'm blending it in, but just how nicely it blends into my skin. I just, oh, love it. So now that I've blended in, I'll just go on top of that with a damp beauty blender, and this is it. I like how blendable this is as well, and how creamy and rich in texture it is, because I feel like it's adding that extra level of moisture to my skin and hydration, and you can see the brightness between the two. So this one I don't have anything on, and this one I have the concealer on, and it gives me a really nice rested look. The last concealer I wanted to talk about is the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. The shade I have is 10 Fair, and this retails for $11.50 Canadian. So what I loved about this concealer, this reminded me of the NARS Creamy Concealer. The texture and the consistency just felt so good and creamy. I love how blendable this is. It just was so easy to work with. At first I like to just warm it up with my finger, and then I went in with a beauty blender, and it blends like a dream. It lasts beautifully throughout the day. I noticed almost no creasing with this one, and it just made my skin feel really good throughout the day. Like, there was no dryness, there was no patchiness. I didn't need to retouch it at all. It lasted really, really beautifully. Two things I would say about this that are negative is it only comes in 12 shades, which is nothing. Like, that's not a lot of options. And also, if you have dark circles, you would need to kind of build this up a little bit, like layer it up, because I found that with one layer, like you won't get that type of coverage, like good enough coverage to cover dark circles. So I would say if you do have dark circles, make sure you kind of build this product up, maybe put 2 layers on and set that with powder. But even with that, the coverage is really nice and it lasts really well. So even on days where I did set this with powder, my skin still felt really good. So I didn't experience any of the dryness, and it lasted really nicely. So the shade I'm using in the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer is 10 Fair, and this one comes in 12 different shades, so not a lot of options. But I have to say, out of all the concealers that I've talked about in this video, this Maybelline one felt the thickest, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it felt the most creamy and the most luxurious. So when I first apply it on, it looked like, okay, this is a little watery. It's gonna be more gel-like, but when I actually started like blending it out, it felt so nice and rich and creamy, and it just blended out so nicely. A close second to this was the Kosas. That one also felt super rich and creamy, but this one actually felt the most luxurious. So I will pop a little bit of it there and there. And this one I'm going to start blending on my finger as well, just to warm it up a little bit, and then I'll go in and finish with a damp beauty blender. And this one I applied a little too much, but this one as well, a little goes a long way. I went a little overboard here, but that's okay. And I just love how skin-like this concealer leaves my skin. It just looks so nice. Love it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments below if you've used any of these concealers. Did you like them? Did they work for you? Did you not like them? I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Hit that subscribe button to see what videos I come up with next, and I'll see you guys next time.